All right, people, here we go. So what we're going to do today, we are going to do a self-portrait in flat illustration style. Ooh, that was a fun sound. In Adobe Illustrator. I'm literally just going to make this up as I go, and so let's see what happens. I'm going to do the best to do myself here, and hopefully we'll see what happens. One of the things I've kind of noticed in using Illustrator Creative Cloud lately is that there's a couple of preferences that I personally like to change. And so I'm gonna have you guys go up there. If you want to do this, great. If not, that's okay too. So I'm gonna go to Illustrator, Preferences, General. And then in this panel, you're gonna see a bunch of different stuff. So the things that I have are scale, strokes, and effects, and scale corners. The reason why I want to do that is because if I have as I shrink things and make them bigger, I want them to scale or change size with the new size that I would like. If you don't do that and you have a 5-point effect on, or like a 5-point stroke on like a square, as you shrink it, it's still going to stay 5-point. Versus when you click the scale strokes, it will change to make it smaller, similar to the size of the square that you were also making smaller. Hopefully that makes sense. If not, like I said, try it with it and without it, whatever you prefer. The other thing I like to change is going to units, and normally it's set up on points. I personally change it to inches because to me that makes more sense. I leave stroke and type at points. That's just how I've always done it. And I hit OK. So here we go. We're going to get started. This is my artboard. So when I actually go to, let's say I want to print this out, that's the size of a paper, right? Because that's how we said we wanted to start out. Okay. All right. So I'm going to do my best to explain what I'm doing while I'm doing it. Now with the new version of, we got to make it, sorry. So I realized I started making one of these earlier, and that's actually my layer 1, which I turned off, and you'll kind of see that later. So I actually want a new layer, so I'm going to go to my layers panel. I'm going to make a new, so we're set up just like that. Okay, and I'm going to switch use a rectangle for my head. So we're going to start with this, and we'll change sizes as necessary. So I'm trying to decide if I have a longer head versus a shorter head, or wider, any of that kind of stuff. So we'll start with this. You notice that it's brown right now, which is not the right color personally for me. And so I'm going to go up into color. When we first start with our little paint palette, it's going to look like this. One of the things, once again, personal preference, I like to have the option to have more options in there. So I'm going to actually click on what I call the hamburger and click on show options. With that, what that's going to do is it's going to allow me to go in here and kind of pick there and then actually kind of fine tune the colors a little bit as well. You may notice we have two different things going on here, right? So this is my stroke, which I actually don't want to use my stroke right now. I'm going to make that clear. And then the one that is solid, that's my fill. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to kind of go in here and try to find like a happy-ish color for me. And then this is where I kind of do the fine tuning. So I'm going to go, I want it to be a little pinker and maybe a little bit darker. And it doesn't have to be realistic. So like if you want to be blue, like that's fine. It's not that big a deal. I'm okay with that. Cool. So right now I'm set with, this is the color I have. And then the next thing I do is I'm actually going to go to this thing called Color Guide. So essentially what the Color Guide is, it's a set of colors that work well together. So it's similar, it's basically color theory that's already preset for you. A lot of times I go with Triad or Triad 2. This by no means has to be your like 100% set of colors, but it's just a way to say, oh, these colors actually work well together. So I'm going to go with Tetrad 2. Okay, so what that does is it creates a set of 5 colors that are right here. And I can actually click on my hamburger and go to Save Color Swatches. So what did that do? Doesn't look like anything. If I go to these squares, this is called my swatches. Now I actually have a folder right here that has those 4 colors set and they're saved. Okay, so we're good to go. So now I don't constantly have to try to guess what those colors are. They're set right here. So these are kind of my go-to colors for my project. Can I go outside of that? Yeah, you can. I just know that these 4 colors are going to work well together. Or maybe, yeah, so cool. So we're going to start with that. So this is my rectangle. And what I want to do is I know that I don't have a square head. And so I don't know if you remember from before, is that in the last project, if you go and kind of drag those corners in, right, you can change all the corners. But the thing is, I don't want all 4 of those corners changed. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to click on the specific corners, and you can see it'll let me pick just one corner. If I hold down Shift, it'll actually let me select 2 of those corners. Now I can drag it in and make my head round. I'm going to go a little slight less than round, like perfect round. Cool, so I'm set there. Okay, so this is going to be kind of the base for my head. I personally don't like outlines. That's just me. Cool, so let's see. Some of the main features. I have glasses. So once again, I'm going to go to my square. This time I'm actually, even though I just said I don't like outlines, I'm going to use the black outline for my glasses. I think I might actually, instead of black, I think I'm going to go to like a light, to like kind of like a dark gray. You notice up here, I clicked on this to kind of change. So whatever is on top is what is going to be selected by this. So if I go here, right? If I have this on top, it's going to pick the outline. Okay. I'm going to make my points a little bit thicker, and I can change them as I go. And I'm going to bring them in. Cool. I'm going to go a little. Let's see. I'm going to go a little smaller, not much, because I'm going to actually over exaggerate these a little bit. For this one, I'm actually going to bring them in. I'm actually going to bring all 4 in. That's not too bad. That'll work for me. So one thing I could do is I could do that whole process over again, or what I can do, remember, if you hit the Option key, Alt Option, and I'm actually clicking, not clicking, but hovering over my shape. And so this one's the stroke, right? So I'm going to hover over that, and I'm going to drag it over. So now I'm going to have 2. Okay. One thing I can do to make sure that these are actually equally lined out, I can select both by clicking on one, holding Shift, selecting the other one, and I'm going to group these together. These are objects. So I can actually just go up to my object, go on Group, or if you notice in this section, it says that goofy looking star thing and a G. That goofy looking star thing stands for command. You notice on your keyboard, you should have that exact same shape on there. So I'm going to group them, Command G. And now, just like we learned before, I can center them up in this world up here. Right? So now I know that those are perfectly centered. All right. The next thing I want to do is I'm actually going to make the connection between my glasses so that, so that curve. So I could draw it in, but I want to be more accurate than that. So I'm actually going to go to a circle, my ellipse tool. I'm going to click, I'm going to drag. So you notice when I click and I drag, it can go any shape I want. I want a perfect circle. So I'm going to hold down Shift and drag. So now you can see it keeps those same proportions. Okay, so there's my perfect circle. I don't need the whole circle though. I only want actually this part here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to actually go to my direct select, which is the white one, and I'm going to directly select a point. And I'm going to hit delete. I'm going to directly select that point, hit delete. So now what I'm left with is this. I'm going to rotate it. And I'm going to shrink it down. So I want it to fit, I want it to fit perfectly inside there. It's a little hard to see for what I'm doing, so I'm actually going to zoom in. So I'm going to hit Command plus, that lets me zoom in. Command minus actually lets me zoom out. And Command 0 just kind of fits my panel into the whole screen. So I'm going to go Command plus to zoom in. All right, so now it's actually way easier to see. So I'm going to hit Shift to kind of get, because I want it to shrink at the equal proportion. So you notice as I held down Shift and resized it, this thing shrank. It was before the same size as this. So what I can do is actually hit eyedropper. And I can click on, as long as I have my, I'm touching the screen as if you actually can see me. As long as I have my things, what I want changed selected first, I can now hit eyedropper on that, and it'll bring it to the right size. I'm going to bring that in, shift it over just a little bit. Now I can zoom out. Because I know that I want this to stay with these glasses, I'm going to hold down Shift, select that, and I'm going to group it. So now those are going to stay together. So as I can actually resize it, and they'll all resize at the same time. So I'm pretty happy with that. I'm going to shrink it back down to how it was. Now, for your character, you can look at the class website. You can see there's a whole bunch of different things. We don't want to get too overly detaily with these. I mean, it's up to you. We will do some shading and that kind of stuff a little bit later. And it's, all this stuff is your own personal preference. Look at some of the references on the class website, but also, feel free to feel free to, make a lot of your own choices with this. How you want your nose to look, any of that kind of stuff. Okay, but honestly, at the end, it should look something like you. Just a character of you. All right. So for my nose, what am I going to do? I'm going to go to a rectangle tool, and I'm going to start with this. And actually, I want my fill to be on the inside. So okay. So what I did, it started with my stroke here. But I actually don't want a stroke, and I want my fill. All right, so I just hit that flippity flop button right there, so it flipped it. And I'm going to go into my colors here, and I need to make sure this is on top. I'm going to select that color. Right, so I just went straight into that swatches right there. So I'm going to bring this in. I want that to fit in there. So it looks like it's a little big, so I'm going to hold. This time, instead of making the whole thing shrink, I just want to bring the sides in a little bit. So you notice how it's bringing both sides in at the same time. I'm actually holding down Option for that. I understand that there's a lot of things that I'm going to say that you might pick up some of it. Some of it, I just want you to know that it is an option to do as well. So if you don't remember everything, it's not the end of the world. It's okay. All right. Cool. So I want to, notice my nose right now is on top of my glasses. I actually need my glasses to sit on my nose. And so there's a couple things I can do. I can pull up my layers, right? And so I can see right now that my nose is above my glasses, right? You also notice as I click on it, there's a little colored square that pops up. That tells you what layer you're on. So if I click on my face or my glasses, right, it shifts. All right, so that's my nose. So I can drag that underneath. Boom. So now I'm set just like that. The other way we could do it is if I can right click, aka control click on my nose, and it'll say arrange. I can bring it forward and backwards. I can bring it all the way back. I can bring it all the way front. Or I can go step by step with these. Or if you look here, right, Command, and then the brackets. So if I just do the Command brackets, you can see that'll adjust forward and backwards. Cool. Okay. From here, I'm going to decide, do I want this bigger? Do I want this smaller? Let's try a little bigger. Bring it down a little bit. I just want to make sure it fits what's inside of there. Okay. I'm going to do another square. Once again, this is just what I'm doing. You can do whatever you want.